Welcome to Real Estate Investing Abundance, the show for busy, fulfilled professionals like you to learn how to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. Now, here is your host, Dr. Alan Lomax.
Enlightened investors, in the next few minutes, we are going to learn all we need to know to buy multifamily deals without failing. Today's guest was a former Inc. 500 technology chief who had great success until he failed in a spectacular fashion. The spectacular failure kicked off his 10 dark years. He was rudderless, with no direction, and financially broke. It wasn't until a friend introduced him to the power of buying large real estate deals that changed the entire course of his life. He ended up building a real estate portfolio and becoming the general partner on over 100 million of deals in under 3 years. Today, our guest, Agostino Pintus, helps people get into real estate deals of their own and to build their own wealth. Agostino, before we jump into all we need to know to invest in multifamily deals without failing, share a memorable experience from your formative years that helped you to be the person you are today.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. You know, as you said, I was a C-level executive and I was working at a company not that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, right? And I've been doing real estate, mainly single families. And the whole thought behind that, like 16 years ago with single families, was to build a small portfolio of real estate. And that way, if something happened for it, I would still have some income coming in on those single families. That's all I knew, right? I started down that path. I quit for a long period of time. And as you said, I went through those 10 dark years. Once I picked back up and started really getting my life back together, went back into corporate America, only to get canned again, right? About 5 years ago. Here I am back in Virginia. That's where I ended up going to try to sell off a bunch of properties to get some extra cash out. And I looked at a property, this big property. Well, I thought it was big at the time. It was 30 units. I look at it, and I happened to be on the phone with a real estate attorney friend of mine. And I said to him, I go, who owns that? He's like, what do you mean? People own it. I said, well, what people? Like, I thought the bank owns it. He goes, no, people own that. They syndicate it. I'm like, syndicate? What's that? What's syndication? Deal syndication? What's deal syndication? And he went on to explain how to put deals together. You basically use other people's money, right? They invest in a deal. They invest equity in a deal. You get the debt from the bank. You take down the deal. You cash flow it. You run it. You operate it properly. You give the return back to the investors. You sell it off after some time frame, and you end up making some money that way. And you roll it into the next deal, and you keep on growing. And that short conversation, which, by the way, was the last time I ever talked to that guy. All right, that short conversation from 5 years ago is what kicked off the entire career of what I left a six-figure C-level executive job sort of scenario to do what I do now, which is I buy large real estate deals, right? And we also do development, and we also get into triple net deals as well. So I wish I would have done it sooner, but I wasn't in that right state of mind. And I'll tell you, it took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of studying and training to understand how to take down these deals. But a lot of pain I went through. It's not for the faint of heart, but I'm so happy I did it. And that is something that really kicked off these formative years that I'm still forming, even today. You know, I was just telling you in the green room, I'm working on one deal right now. I just signed a $70 million construction loan on a development deal that we're working on. $70 million. And we're not even done with that deal yet. It's only part of the capital stack, right? It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So yeah, it's who would have thought that one little conversation would have changed the whole course of my life, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, so many little different things like that can kick off major transformations. Well, how can I use real estate to create wealth early in my life? There's no way I can do that early in my life. I'm well beyond that. But how can a person actually create wealth from real estate investing early in life?
You know, as I think about it, there's really two ways to do it. You can either do it yourself. You know, you go find your own deals, you source your own deals, you get your own debt, you raise your own money, you do all that. A lot of work involved in doing that. A lot of things to know, and you better be right. You know, you have to know what you're doing. That's one way to do it. The second way is to invest, ride on someone's coattails who's an experienced person who's done it before, who knows what they're doing and knows the market and has raised the best debt they could possibly raise and has very, very high familiarity with how to assemble these types of deals and piggyback on what they're doing. Those are the two primary ways. I'm sure there's other ways to do it too. You can partner with someone else, I guess, which is like the second option I just mentioned as well, right? It is partnering. But what I found is that if I would have known back when I first started in corporate America, 30 years ago, maybe longer than that, actually, 35 years ago, I would have done things a little differently. Right, I would have gotten to real estate a lot sooner. I would have taken the time to understand all the great benefits that come with real estate, whether you're doing it yourself or you're partnering with someone else, all the tax benefits you get, the tax sheltering, all that fun stuff. But I didn't. I was stuck in corporate. So for anybody that's in corporate right now that's listening to this, I applaud what you're doing, because I think it's very tough for someone that's in corporate. Their heads down, they're focused on their work, they're focused on putting food on the table for their family. I get it. I was that guy too. But unless you prepare for the future by leveraging real estate, which is in my opinion, the safest place to put your cash, it's a physical asset. That's not going anywhere. That to me makes the most amount of sense for securing a future, 100%.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. As an industry-leading, relationship-focused, design-build construction firm, Mosaic Construction has worked in many different asset classes from multifamily to retail, medical, industrial, and commercial. Mosaic Construction works to execute interior and exterior renovations with their team of trades and project managers. Their experience with value-add improvements has resulted in increased ROI and long-term value of the assets. They work nationally in partnership with local trades to deliver thoughtful, problem-solving construction management solutions to all their clients. For a personal, no-obligation consultation, call Ira Singer, 773-491-3145. or email Ira at mosaicconstruction.net. You can also find Ira on LinkedIn. Absolutely. And it is difficult if you're in a profession, particularly if you're fulfilled in that profession, you don't have a whole lot of incentive to look outside of that bubble that you are in. And who knows? It happened to you. It happened to me. I loved what I was doing, and suddenly I didn't have that source of income, and I hadn't prepared for it. And that's what this show is all about, is helping people to prepare for those things. So like you and I, they don't have to experience those dark years of financial drought. So how do you help others reach their full potential?
Well, we do that multiple ways. And one way we do it is to prepare these great deals that make sense for others to invest with us, right? To partner with us on. The deals that I'm working on today range from your A, B, and C type, well, mainly B and C type acquisition deals, to the A class stuff that we're building, right? Which is a combination of development and a combination of just acquiring stabilized assets. And the tertiary thing, the third thing that we do, is acquiring these triple net type of deals, right? These single tenant triple net deals. Think of like Dollar General, Dollar Tree, CVS, Walgreens, those types of deals, right? All three of these have very different levels of income, very different levels of return, right? But they're all very similar in the sense that you still shelter your money. You're putting your money into a physical asset. You get some sort of return. The return varies depending on, like anything else, how much risk there is in the deal, right? So we help investors get in on those deals and enjoy the benefits of being in those types of deals. And the thing is that you might be able to, as someone out there listening, be able to get into a 30-unit deal, okay, a 20-unit deal on your own, maybe, or with someone else who may just be starting out. That's a high risk scenario there. High risk, if you ask me. The smaller the deal, the riskier it is. Why? Fewer doors. On a 20-unit deal, you need 7 people stop paying rent because of whatever's going on in government that day. Then what happens? That deal's upside down, and that person's at risk of losing the property. The deals I'm doing are typically 100, 200, and they're fairly low risk because we know the assets, we know the area. So this allows people, many of our investor friends are their friends and family, they're doctors or lawyers, they're wealthy individuals, they're entrepreneurs that have socked away a lot of money and they're putting money into these deals. And we've delivered plenty of returns to those folks. That's one way we do it, right? The second way that we do it is if someone does want to do this on their own, right? Someone really, really, really wants to get into this business and run their own deals. I help people get into that as well, right? It's a whole different scenario, obviously, than just buying in. But I will say that for me, it's a full-time and a half job, so to speak, with air quotes, right? Because I'm always running. And I love what I do, which is great, right? But it's one of those things that from the time I wake up at 5 a.m., I go to the gym, I'm already in front of my computer preparing for what needs to be done. And I'm usually on the phone or texting or emailing, whatever, until the evening. But I enjoy what I do, right? And if someone really wants to have that type of lifestyle, at least when they're still building, right, when they're still in the acquisition stage, you have to be prepared to handle that kind of stuff. And if you're not, and that's okay, it depends on how far they want to push themselves, right, to be that successful person, right? So, but that's how we do it. We do it those two ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you create and define a successful mindset to hit your goals?
I will say that in this business, if you're going to be successful, like anything else that you're doing, right, you have to have a picture of what you want in your mind. And that's one thing that even when I was working in corporate, I didn't really do. So by building the right mindset overall, doesn't just apply to real estate. It applies to everything. It applies to your whole life. And what I did was I started with building my affirmations, right? And what my affirmations are is it's a list of, I'd say 25 different things of how my life is, whether it is like this or not. I talk about my home in South America. I talk about my returns, my 12% returns on 10,000 units. I talk about my life with my family. I talk about how many cars I have, everything else like that. As if, so I'm pulling the future into today and I'm writing it all down. I'm telling my subconscious what I want to see in my life. I'm programming myself, right? All this visualization. I know it sounds like a bunch of foo-foo nonsense, but that's the kind of stuff that if you don't define what you want your life to look like, you're never going to get there. And it doesn't matter whether you're a real estate entrepreneur, whether you are a construction worker, a waitress, or the president of the United States. What matters is how are you defining your life right now? And then you have to build, then after that, you're building the plan to how to get there, right? But without defining first what you want your life to look like, you're just going to get this, you're going to repeat the same old thing every single day. And some people are happy doing that. It's okay. I'm not knocking it. That's fine. But if you want something more, you have to define all that up front. For me, that's where it all starts, is writing down my affirmations every single day and really reflecting on them and then figuring out how I'm going to get there.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Would you ever invest all your money in a single stock? Very unlikely. Yet investors are willing to risk $50,000 to $100,000 in a single property in real estate all the time. Avestor is the world's first customizable real estate investment platform. Investors can build their own custom portfolio selecting investments across multiple asset classes such as single-family homes, multifamily, student housing, self-storage, and shopping centers. You can also invest across multiple markets and different time frames. Avestor also enables other real estate entrepreneurs and syndicators to build and use Avestor's infrastructure and cloud platform to create their own customizable real estate funds. To learn more, visit us at avestorinc.com. Avestor, real estate investing made simple.
So the affirmations are essentially where your life is going to be. And I suppose that goes into what we hear a lot of times is you have to define your big why.
Yeah.
Do the affirmations come before that why, or do you define that why before defining the affirmations?
That's a good question. The funny thing is that, for some of the coaching students that I've had, it was sometimes the why, they don't get it yet. They don't understand what their why is. They don't know what their why is. For the longest time, I didn't. It wasn't until I had my son that's when it became readily apparent. But without that why do you have to do whatever it is you need to do? It becomes very, very hard to push through all the bad times that you're going to be facing, right? All the tough times you're going to have to be facing, all the no's, all the hangups you're going to get, all that stuff, right? So trying to clarify what your why is the tricky part. It's tricky, right? But what it requires, this thing, you can't rush it too, right? For some people, it's very, very easy. For other people, it's not. For most of the students that I get, it's usually they want to support their children, right? They want to be able to give their children a life that they didn't have. Usually it's going to be either that. I've had people that wanted to do it for their children, for their family, of course, and also to support other people as well as something that was not them, which is good. And there have been folks, of course, that all they want to do is they just want to get rich. That's it. There's nothing wrong with that either. I'm fine with that. Part of doing real estate is to build wealth. That's why we do what we do, right? But without that why, it becomes extremely difficult to do anything, including real estate, especially when you're first starting out. But yeah, defining that why, and then once you know what that why is, then you can build your affirmations around it, right? I think what you're going to find, at least for me anyway, is that once I knew what my why was and I wrote out my affirmations, there's at least one or two of those affirmations that supported the why. Like I want my son to be friends with some of the most influential people on the planet, right? It's a pretty big why, especially for him, right? So that means that I need to know those people so I can get him introduced and connected to those folks, right? It's one of those things, right? So it certainly helps to know what your why is up front, and I think when you said earlier, I went those 10 dark years when I was rudderless, I didn't have a why, didn't have a purpose. Without purpose, we kind of just float from day to day to day. And that's why you have to have the reason to be. It's important. It's very important.
I wonder if the why is not always there, but self-doubt and fear of failure, I think, oftentimes blind us to actually seeing the why that is probably already there within some aspect of our consciousness.
Yeah. Well, but I'll tell you what, fear of failure, it's going to sound arrogant. I don't really have a fear of failure anymore. I went through a lot of bad stuff, man. I went through a lot of bad stuff. And when you go through that much bad stuff and you see that even after all that crap, you still survive, all right? There's not much that scares you anymore, all right? What is failure? What? You have $100,000, is that failure? I mean, you lose your house, okay? I mean, people do it all the time, right? I'm not saying that's oh yeah, I do. But if you don't take any risks, you're never going to get any rewards. You have to take risk. And the way to overcome the fear of failure is to get as much information as you possibly can into your head and to understand the subject matter as deeply as possible, right? I think that's the reason why I don't have a fear of failure anymore, is because I know my stuff and I study it. I study it every single day. I study the biggest names that I know. I study the billionaires. I study the people that have built success, the good things and the bad things that they've done, and try to incorporate it in my own life. I think that's the reason why. If fear only shows up when you don't know, when you know something, when you know how to drive a car, you're not afraid to drive the car like you were the very first time you got behind a wheel and you turned it on, you sat there. I think everybody felt that. They felt a little bit intimidated, a little bit afraid, right? They're going to, oh my God, I'm going to move this 4-ton machine down the road here. Hope to God I don't hit anybody. There's that. And then fast forward to 20 years down the line, you're way more comfortable driving in front of the wheel. As a matter of fact, you'll be making a phone call and drinking coffee at the same time while you're driving. Not recommended, but that's what people are doing, right? It says a lot. Why? Because you know and you're familiar, right? And that's the only way to overcome fear, is to become familiar. And listen, for some people to get that level, that depth, it requires a lot of effort, a lot of time. And if someone is happy doing what they're doing, say they love doing what they're doing, job-wise, career-wise, they're building a career, they're a heart surgeon and the best in the country, and they know what they're doing. You know what? they're serving mankind, doing what they do best. They need to shelter some of that income, put it into real estate. Does that mean they have to become a real estate expert? No, not an expert. It's good to know about real estate, but you invest with someone else that does do it, right? Someone that you trust that does put these sorts of deals together. And you're able to shelter your income, continue doing what you're doing, and still partner on deals that are going to be successful.
Enlightened investors, we'll be right back after this important announcement. I have a big ask that will only take a moment of your time. Ratings and reviews are the lifeblood of our podcast. So to leave a review, iPhone or other Apple iOS device users, go to Apple Podcasts or iTunes. For all you non-Apple device users, go to podchasers.com. On either platform, search for Real Estate Investing Abundance. Once found, please leave a review and a rating. Subscriptions are also vital to our show's success, so please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. It is free to subscribe, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Yes, our brains are extraordinarily malleable, and they are very, very responsive to action. And once you get into that first deal, that really is shaping your brain to get into the next deal and the next deal and the next deal. The hardest deal to get into is your first deal. Yeah. Not just because our brains aren't conditioned for that, but because for our first deals, we haven't built the network. We haven't gone through the process. We don't have those skills. So a lot of reasons that first deal is the most difficult. But a good portion of that is just our brains have not been conditioned to that kind of success.
Yeah, 100%. When I did my first multifamily deal that I'd done since I rebooted my whole life was actually an 11 unit that converted to a 12 unit deal. And for that deal, I took everything I owned, right? All my money I sold off a bunch of properties. I had a little nest egg of cash, and I used that little nest egg of cash to buy this little 11 unit deal on my own. I didn't raise any money for it, and I stole this deal. I stole it. Okay. I mean, I got it for such a great cost basis that, well, I'll put it this way. I paid like $12,000 a door for it. I ended up selling it for $30,000. Freaking remarkable, right? Beautiful return. But, that first deal was a little scary. It was a little scary for me, right? I never did a deal before, number one. Number two, I didn't want to put anybody else's money at risk until I knew that I can do it myself, right? That was the thing. I felt like I had to do it on my own to be in the game, right? And that's what I did. And I wanted to learn on my own dime as opposed to learning on someone else's, right? And I learned a lot from that little deal. Learned a tremendous amount on that little deal. Everything from how to buy it, to how to underwrite it, how to operate it. I did use property management, still use property management to this very day. And we turned it around, it made it great. We actually, like I said, fixed the place up and sold it for almost 3 times what I paid for it. Remarkable return. Right. It's those sorts of things that you learn, but, over time. I mean, this is over a course of several years. Again, it takes effort to do this kind of stuff. And if you're, like I said, if you're a professional in the C-suite or wherever you are in corporate America, for that matter, it doesn't have to be a C-suite, but you're in corporate America, you may not want to devote that kind of time to doing this kind of stuff. And maybe you say you do. Maybe you say, you know what, I really, really want to do this kind of stuff. Consider it for a second. All right. The amount of effort required to do this type of business, because I talk to people all the time and they tell me the same thing. Oh, I want to do what you do. I want to sign a $70 million term sheet and get a loan for $70 million so I could build the same sort of thing. Really though? Are you sure you really want to do this? I mean, as I said, I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff every single day. If you're happy doing what you're doing, and you enjoy having free time with your family, you may not want to do this, right? So it all depends on the individual. It depends on the individual.
Absolutely. And lifestyle is important to consider. So how do you build a business around your lifestyle?
We built this portfolio of real estate. Now we're up to, I just closed on 212 units a few days ago. I'm closing another 100 units here next few weeks. So it's going to be up to about 1,300 units of actual acquisition. And that's over the course of about 3.5 years, right? Not including, I bought the Rockefeller building in downtown Cleveland, and we're renovating that to another 430 units. That's going to be a $125 million project. That's a redevelopment play of a historical asset. And then I'm also doing a ground-up development deal in right next to the Cleveland Clinic here in Cleveland as well, and possibly another ground-up development too that we're considering. So, and then not including all the triple net stuff that we're doing too, right? But we're still in growth mode, right? We're still in growth mode, and I got a lot of catching up to do, right? That's the way I look at it anyway, because as we've already pointed out here, I spent a lot of time in corporate America. Nothing wrong with corporate, not mad at it or anything else like that. But I had to, basically, I threw away this career of corporate America, a good 20 some years, threw it away, and then had to learn all this real estate stuff. And now I'm accelerating it as fast as I can. So what does that mean for me? Well, that means that my life is a little different than most other guys do. Like my business partner, my primary business partner, he's got like 6,000 units. He's also very, very experienced. But, he turns off his phone on the weekends. He spends time with his family. He does all that. And with me, it's just my wife and I, and that's it. So for us, it's a little bit easier to do. But every single thing that we do is still centered around the business, even to this very day. I'm looking for deals. I'm talking to other deal makers. I'm grabbing coffee with them on a weekend, so still very centered around the business. But I enjoy doing it. That's the thing. I wouldn't say, no, you ever hear this term, this life-work balance? I think it's nonsense, honestly. I think it's a bunch of crap. I prefer to live a more integrated life where the life that I'm building for myself, I'm still building it, and it's going to continue to build. The life that I'm building is based around people that are good for me to hang out with, good for me to communicate with, and that also have success in mind, right? And that's not for everyone. That is not for everyone. For some people, they want to have those separations of professional and family. And I used to be like that too. I used to be like that. But I've switched it up a little bit. I've traded it in for an integrated life. That's why I moved to downtown, downtown Cleveland. That's where all the deal makers are. And again, it's not for everybody, but I actually enjoy it. I like it. I like doing that. I also enjoy having free time, so for winter, for instance, winters here are pretty rough. I'll probably go down to Florida for a couple of months. I can do that kind of stuff, right? And go see my family and hang out with them, try to wait out the worst parts of the winter and then come back home. You can do that kind of thing, right? Other people can't, and that's okay, But like I said, it's a more integrated type of life as opposed to a work-life balance type scenario.
Well, Agostino, I'm sure our viewers and listeners would like to connect with you. So share with us how we can do that.
Absolutely. So bulletproofcashflow.com. If you Google it, just drop me a line on the website. We also have a Facebook page. We have the Facebook group as well. We're on LinkedIn. All the platforms, we're pretty much there. So by all means, if you just do a Google search, you'll find us, and feel free to drop me a line. I always love hearing from people.
Well, excellent. Well, Agostino, for our last question today, imagine that you've come to the end of your life, and as you lay on your deathbed, what will you look back on with your greatest sense of joy and satisfaction?
Oh, wow. Based on today or based on the future? Because here's the thing. I've not reached my full potential yet, and I know I haven't. I think it's a very interesting question. My goal is to have $1 billion in assets under management of my own. Assets under management. The reason why I want to do that is because I want to impact my family for generations to come, and I want to be able to help others as well, help them reach their potential. So in order to do that, it's going to require a whole lot more work, which is why I work as hard as I do right now. So if I were on my deathbed, I would think back to, I'm happy that I'm able to not only leave this great amount of wealth for my family, but also continue to impact others even after I'm gone, so I can continue to contribute to this planet even in my absence. So that would make my life totally complete.
Agostino, it has been a pleasure being with you today. Thank you for sharing your life, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.